Hey everyone, Miranda Pitrone back here with you today to do one of these lovely little fall trees. In the past, I have done these fall trees on black backgrounds and dark stones so the colors really pop. But today I was thinking I'd like to switch over to something that has a light background or a white background just to see how that goes for us. This one uses a lot of great colors, and it's not a mandala, it's just a dot art type piece. So you can see here, this is one of the Capcouriers stones, the flat white. They're large flat white stones, and they're smooth and sparkly. It's the Santorini type stone. So I'm going to do my design on this one today, and I'll post all the links for Capcouriers and other helpful links in the description of my video. And they do have another selection besides just these stones, but this is the one I'm going to use here today. So I'm just going to gather my reds and greens and yellows and all my fall colors, and we're going to put the design on this nice flat smooth stone. And I'll be using brushes today, but you're welcome to use dotting tools or whatever it is that you feel comfortable using for tools. So this stone too, I kind of just want to think about where I want to center my design. So I kind of break it up usually into three. So this would be my grassy area, and then you have your tree with the foliage. So I just kind of rough out, kind of like you draw just a cloud, that idea in mind. And that'll be where you kind of confine your foliage to. So don't feel restricted by having the outline. It's just a guideline so that you can kind of keep the sizing of your design on whatever kind of canvas you're using. So this is a lighter background, and I generally don't like to use pencil, but on this one I'm just gonna sketch it in lightly so we can erase it later. But that way it gives us an idea as to which sections we stay in for each part of the design. So this will be all my grass in here. We have a nice little grassy knoll for our tree. So this stone is about 6 inches across by about 4.5, almost 5 inches in height. It's just so you have an idea of the size of the design that we're working with today. So this area is going to be my grass. And then I have the trunk of the tree in this area here, up top here. And then up above that will be our foliage. So depending on your tree and the size of your canvas, how many branches you want off your tree, just kind of space it out accordingly. And you're welcome to do it off center. It fits this stone better if I keep it centered on this one. So first I'm going to go with raw umber, which is a great color for tree trunks. And I'm just going to grab a soft acrylic brush. It's just a soft paintbrush. And it allows me to just kind of flick the branches up into the top part so you get a narrow as opposed to really thick branches. So I'm going to start down a little farther in on our little grassy hill here, not right at the top of the line that I drew. I'll just kind of give it a little curve here on one side, and then this here will be the other side of our tree trunk. And then you just kind of decide how many branches you want to have go off into your foliage, depending on the size of your canvas. But I'm just going to fill this little guy in and maybe give him three or four, maybe 3. And you can always go back over it again because some of it is looking like it's showing a little bit lighter on this stone. So I'm going to give a good thick coat here. And they don't have to be perfect either. You know, your branches go up into the foliage and you can cover them with some of the foliage. If you're having trouble getting the branches to look exactly the way you want, you can always just sort of dot over the ends when we get into this. There you go, just like that. So you can see there's a little bit of where it's lighter here. And like I said, you can always go over it with the foliage after. Alright, so while that's drying, we will work on another section here. And I try to work on different sections of the stone. So we'll start at the top here with our reds. And generally in New England, where I'm from originally, we have the trees are darker at the top and then they lose a lot of their color from the bottom. So the chlorophyll starts to go out of them as the seasons change, but depending on which area the tree gets more sun or which has more fluid still, liquid supplying the trees. There's a lot of different things that make up what color the leaves change and how they change and where they change on the tree. So today we're going to do dark red at the top, work our way into orange, and then do yellow at the bottom here. And then the bottom will have our green. I'm not going to put any green in the tree, which sometimes you do. You see the green still too, but we'll save the green for our grassy knoll. So I'm just thinking which reds here are going to go decently on this stone so that we can get that gradient that goes from top to bottom. Let's start with true red. And all my paints are the Decoart Americana lines. So they're nice and bright. It's going to pop up nicely on this white stone, I think. So we'll just kind of haphazardly dot out the top part here of our tree. And I do small, big, small. You just vary it up quite a bit. Let's zoom in here a little. But I'm just going to outline the top part of that little cloud-like sketch we put for the top part of our foliage. So there's not really any rhyme or reason to this. As you can see, I'm doing large and small. I like to do the small ones toward the outer edges of both sides of our zones, just because when we're blending too, that'll kind of help the blending section. But it's not like the mandalas where you feel kind of constricted to a pattern more so. This is just kind of free flow pointillism, which is nice. It's a nice break. Okay, so now I have tangelo orange. And that's going to start off our orange zone here. So when I get into the blending area, I do a little bit smaller dots. But that's just my personal preference. If you like the big chunky dots, you can do that too, but my personal preference is to just kind of do the smaller dots to blend in each section so it doesn't look so divided. And I'll use multiple shades of each color just to kind of create that more progressive coloration of the tree with different highlights and shading. Alright, so let's go into the green with a little bit of apple green here, just to kind of rough out the top of our grassy knoll area. Same thing with this, it's just kind of a haphazard. I do lightest at the top where the sun would be hitting the top, and then a little darker as we get to the bottom. And this one's a little bit thicker because it's one of the multi-surface paints, but it still works really well for making the dots. So that one bled over a little bit. I'm just wiping it off quick with a little bit of water here and a clean brush. Baby wipes are really handy as well to wipe off, but we don't have a background on this stone, so if you have a background painted on, it's a little bit easier. You just kind of wipe the paint off and reapply your background, but because this stone is the natural stone in the back, I just wanted to clean off that. Okay, so I have sunny day. We're going to go back up to our tree foliage. And this is going to start our yellow section in here. And we're kind of staying in this zone just haphazardly, but we will blend some smaller ones up into the orange zone just so you get that area where they combine. And I just kind of balance it out here on the outer edge. But this yellow is nice because it gives you that glow from underneath. Okay, so I'm going to go with mermaid tail and go a little darker at the base of our knoll here. We'll see how it shows on this white stone. It might be a little too dark, so we'll blend it later, but all right. So now I'm going to just kind of fill in the areas on my tree trunk that are a little scarce with the paint or it's showing through. And sometimes that happens, you just have to do more than one coat. That's again just with the raw umber still. Okay, so I think that red is really bright, so we're going to use a little bit of this Santa red here and just go back in. A lot of times I like to do highlights, but I think with the stone being so white for our background, we need more low lights to just kind of contrast the bright reds and oranges that we are already using. So this Santa red is kind of like a brick color. And it's okay if they overlap. We're just gonna keep on filling in the empty space and then do the smaller ones to blend into the orange zone. So now I'm going to use scarlet because it's kind of an orange-red type color. So it draws the red and the orange both in, and it'll help kind of balance out that gradient that we're doing here. I'm just adding that in the spaces here. And overlapping again, it really bulks up the design. Alright, so now I'm using this honey brown to kind of highlight our tree, the side of the trunk, and then the branches. Alright, so now that the yellow area is dried a little bit, I'm going to go in with a primary yellow. So same as we did with the reds, rather than go brighter with a highlight, this one's a little denser, a little darker in the pigment. And it's just going to kind of downplay the bright aspect. I mean, the colors are still bright, but it doesn't quite look as neon. Especially on my screen. I'm not sure if it comes across that way to you guys, but it looks bright neon here. But you can see how it really starts to bulk up the design and fill in nicely. So I'm just gonna keep filling in the smaller zone to blend with the smaller dots. Alright, so there's such a contrast between the two of these. That green is really a lot bluer on this white stone. So I'm going to go with just a straight up green, like a turf green maybe here. And that way it'll blend a little better, the two colors, the two zones that I have going on. Actually, let's go in here with some foliage green first. And then I'll use some of the turf green after. I'm just going to go back up here with a little more red, just because I feel like I have too much orange. I'm not the biggest fan of orange. It is a pretty color, but it felt like it was overwhelming my design here, so I'm just going to tuck in some more reds. Alright, so you can see now we just kind of put some light lime up here for where the highlight of our grass is going to be. And I'm just kind of gently going along the top. This will give it sort of that little sun-kissed look. The more I see this on the white stone, the more I'm wondering if it isn't too light. But that's one of the things about art, you know, just kind of see how the flow goes of your piece as it progresses. So this might be a little light. We'll just have to come in with some darker to kind of offset the lightness of the rest of the colors. Alright, so we're using this kind of peacock teal to offset our blue greens a bit and darken it in here. And this just kind of gives it a balance throughout here too. So this is that turf green that I was saying. We'd need a little bit of a darker green to come in here and kind of balance it out a bit with everything being so bright. But that is the difference. When you have black, there's a different contrast, or if you're doing painting on other background colors, there's a different contrast with the colors you use. So it's a learning experience for me as well, painting this nice fall tree on a white background. But it's not impossible, you just have to adjust a little bit with your colors. can see how it's really starting to blend now that we added that in. So it took a few more colors than I had started off thinking we were going to use, but that's not a problem. You just keep blending and blending. That's the beauty of pointillism, is you just keep on blending. And you can overlap more and more dots, especially when you're using different colors. With pen and ink it's not as forgiving, but there you go. So you can always add a background in here, make your foliage larger if you want to fit this. Add more branches if you want a wider top tree, just branch out more and add more foliage to the sides. But this is such a pretty stone, I hate to cover it up with a large design that covers up the sparkle and the pretty stone. So I'm going to leave mine at here. I hope you enjoyed creating this fall tree with me. You can find more of my art on Instagram and contact me on Facebook. I'm always running specials and giveaways. I try to have good tips and answer all the questions that I can. And also now the the YouTube now has a community tab that is much more interactive, where I put posts, we can comment back and forth. I don't think it allows pictures still in the comments, but you can contact me on Facebook to show pictures and stuff like that as well of work that you've done. So I look forward to sharing in all this with you, and thank you so much for the patience of this one coming out with the narration, and I hope you all have an awesome day. And of course, always happy painting.